it'd be interesting, actually. I should check on the map downstairs that if there's any ley lines or anything going in it. Oh, and the other thing is we checked for the ley lines in the house. The house is built so that the bedroom is in a safe zone from the Hartmann lines and the Curie lines and things like that. I doused them all out in the house. Do you know about Hartmann and Curie grids?
Yes, I do. But why don't you explain it for the listeners that are here and for those that are in archive?
Indeed, explain the Hartmann because these are really important, actually.
Vitally important.
Yeah. Many years ago, when I was staying with my now ex-wife in Wiltshire, we moved into this, funny enough, ramshackle little cottage, and she used to work for a charity that helps people who had ME, which is myalgic encephalitis, which is like tired all the time, chronic fatigue type of syndrome. Condition, and they found a lot of people to be electrosensitive, electropollution sensitive, or even sensitive to these particular earth energies, geomagnetic energies. And essentially the Hartmann lines are the north, south, east and west, north to south, east to west energy, magnetic current flows of the planet. And they occur about every 15 feet or so. And they run north-south and east-west in square forms, and they go in pairs and triples. And the flow goes like opposite directions, so the triple might be 2 up and 1 down or something like that. And these lines are they're part of the Earth grid, and that's it's normal. But if you were to sleep on one of these points where the lines cross, then you're going to start having an overstimulation in a particular place. Now, just to make matters worse, there is the Curie Grid. Now, the Curie Grid overlays the planet, but at a different frequency and a different angle. These ones go at 45 degrees, and they're about 23 feet between each line. And so you've basically got this, it's like a plaid almost, like a tartan. So you've got these lines, and wherever they cross, in fact, actually sleeping on a Curie line is bad news. That would give you, and it did, because it was just incredible, because he looked at all the different rooms, and there was where I was laying, and he said, oh, somebody's going to have trouble with their stomach if they're in this place. And I said, oh, I've got candida, majorly got candida. And he said, yeah, and it kind of, you get drawn to these places. It's like people being addicted to toxic substances. It's not good for you. No, it's not good for you, but you're drawn to it. And that was the kind of energy that you get into. So it's like the candida. They reproduce because they're being stimulated by that energy, and so they're drawn to that energy because they want to reproduce. Anyway, long story. So when you've got Curie lines, which are the 45-degree ones, and Hartmann lines, and you can look these up on Google. I'll just put the they're discovered by Dr. Curie and Dr. Hartmann. I'll put them in. No, where did that go? Oh dear, that didn't go in the right box. Hang on. There we go. Dr. Curie and Dr. Hartmann. There we go. I'll put it in the chat room there. The places where these lines cross are the ones that start getting serious. So if you've got a bedroom and you've got, for instance, maybe a Hartmann line going through the bottom of the bed and a Curie line crossing over, where that point crosses, somebody might, for instance, if it's at the foot of the bed, say, you might get like verrucas or something it will create a disturbance in your etheric body, because it's all on the same, it's all the same stuff. It causes disturbance in your etheric body, which will then work out as a physical plane disease. So it's something to watch out for. Now, modern houses are built without taking these things into account, but old houses, I'm very fortunate to have discovered, are actually built. They're built around these lines. So where there's a line, often that's where a wall will be, or a corridor, which is fine for a corridor is fine because it's like a moving energy, and these are energy moving lines. So you really don't want anything kind of static on a moving line. The final addition to this cocktail of geopathic stress is an underground stream, and that doesn't mean like a kind of babbling brook. It's often high pressure, very, very fine cracks in like granite or quartz or something like that, and that creates a piezoelectric effect, and creates some very high frequencies, which when they cross over these points, so you say you got a Curie line crossing a Hartmann line crossing another Hartmann line, and there's an underground stream under that. That's a place you don't want to be for any length of time. The underground stream puts out frequencies that like give you asthma. It affects estrogen and all these things, and they have all kinds of weird kind of effects on people who spend a lot of time on those lines. So say you're in the office, and there's a couple of these lines going on. You'll feel very uncomfortable, and everybody around you will be, what's wrong with you? It is a very real thing. Anyway, so I discovered that the house is built beautifully according to these things. It's kind of like a Scottish feng shui kind of thing going on here, because you have to take into account the energies of the land. So it's a health thing, because in fact, what the guy who we got out originally to talk about these things and to douse our house, his name is Alf Riggs. He's probably dead now because it was about 15 years ago. But Alf Riggs was a member of the British Society of Dowsers, and he told us a story where they took a whole a village in Germany, because they're big on that sort of thing over there. And they collected the map of the of the grids line, the grid lines, the underground streams, and all of these things, and then they correlated the people who got ill in that village. And I can't remember the name of the study, but I'm sure somebody would be able to pick it up. And all right, yeah, carry on, yeah, that's good. And basically they could tell you, or they discovered that there was a correlation into where these people were sleeping according to these Hartmann and Curie lines and the kind of diseases and the places that you got. And Alf told me a story. He was given a test. They said a woman in this house has recently died. Do what you do. So he went up and he looked around the house and he went to the bedroom and he took out his dowsing rods and instruments and mapped out the ley line, the Hartmann lines on this thing. And when he said he discovered a line that was passing through this particular part of the bed, and he said, this woman would have had breast cancer in her right breast. And they said, oh, well, that's very interesting. She did have breast cancer, but it was in her left breast. And Alf kind of was puzzled for a little while, and then he looked down on the floor and noticed that the bed had been moved since she died. And it was exactly the same distance as would have taken that the line would have crossed her left breast, not her right breast. So basically, it was like a kind of second-guessing test that his prediction was absolutely correct.
That's wonderful. That's something for people that are listening to the show to go back and listen to about Hartmann lines and ley lines in general. I had a question for you that kind of slipped me for a second. When you were talking about ley lines themselves, that people get sick, well, what about the pyramids and the places of power? When people choose to build things on places of power and cross those over where the ley lines and the Hartmann lines meet, you get places like Silbury Hill, Avebury, the Giza pyramids, the Mayan pyramids. The people back then were very aware of how the lines of energy worked. People that see pictures of Scotland, there's these stone walls that are everywhere. You can attest to that, right?
Yes, they're called dry stone dikes, which is translated to dry stone wall. In fact, the name of my cottage is Dykeside, which means the cottage beside the wall.
And now those walls are built in accordance to the ley lines too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they're meant to harness the energy in some way, shape, or form. If it's for a field of vegetables or wheat or something, whatever it is, or it's for sheep to graze or for people to go and enjoy, the dowsers and shamans of the land before the high-end religions came in would use the ley lines to section an area for ceremonial enhancement. Oftentimes they would make wood circles or stone circles, and from that point they could modify the ley lines that are around them in a bigger scale. People have often asked me about places of power like Stonehenge. You know, there's the first thing that people think Stonehenge is the great clock that allows them to see the positions of the stars. It is that, but it is also a method in which they can modify the energy that is in the ley lines and lines that are around that whole area. There are some places where large volumes of lines interact. And Stonehenge is one of those. Silbury Hill is one of them, Avonbury. It just so happens that the position that Great Britain and Scotland are in is just where a bunch of lines interact and interconnect, because there's more than one layer in the grid. There are several dozen layers. And at times those 7 dozen layers meet at a specific point in time-space, and then people that are aware of those layers can build objects that amplify them, modify them, add to them, subtract to them, input to them, bring programs, so on and so forth as culture gets more expansive. The original people would have used these stone concepts so that one area would be protected from flood, or another area would flood more because that flood would bring regenerating waters. As you said, water underneath is significant. Here in the States, if you have limestone underneath your home and water, you're going to have a very much increased chance of having paranormal effects around you. Often it's like the negative gremlins that pop out in machines, and it's not that they're spirits, it's just the negative energy from people locks into that machinery and it just becomes gremlin-ish. You've experienced gremlins in machines, and let's talk about the change between gremlins in machines and gremlins in the ley lines.
Well, you know, the whole ley line thing is a very interesting thing, and it's part of the ongoing Dark Lodge plan, let's call it that way, of preventing us from ascending. And one of the ways of preventing us ascending is to block our telepathic communications. And I believe that the function of satanic ritual, among other things, is to clog up these ley lines, and to clog up the function of the human. Basically, they've given us the internet, which is doing the same kind of thing, and that's what we're doing with it, and we're not being controlled by it, which is a beautiful little irony. But this is what we're talking about. This is what we're doing. We are creating the new telepathic network, but over technology until the network's been cleared, because we need to create the clearance of that, and that's kind of what you and I have been talking about and doing in the last period. And that's one of the things that, this experience that I had last year when I sort of first had the conversation with an entity that had been kind of stuffed into the ley line. Like, it was just like a bit of newspaper stuffed into the exhaust pipe of a car. It's just kind of stopping it from burning properly and doing all the right things. So, and I think this is what they, when they're talking about clearing the grids, about making the telepathic grids work. Basically, I think what's going to happen is it's going to be like all the corks are going to be blown out of the bottles because the energy behind the ley lines, when they start kicking in, are going to push them out really quickly. So there'll be lots and lots of rather confused folk wandering around, in my opinion. What do you think? We were talking about some really interesting things in the first hour of the show. And one of them was ley lines and the Hartmann lines and the Curie lines. It's a very scientific. People have got it down scientifically that these things have been mapped, and they may not be recognized by your local paper or your national newspaper. But there are groups of people who are very serious about it and have got it very down and realize that there are strong effects that act upon the human body and can make good or ill depending on how you're working with that energy. If you're sleeping on these points and things like that. But the other thing is that these lines are part of our telepathic network. They are like power lines and telephone lines and fiber optic lines all rolled into one. You can send information up and down them, and they'll go around the planet at the speed of thought. Instantaneous network, and it's already there. And so we're moving now into the southern aspect of the galaxy, and when we do so, according to many people, these ley lines are going to switch themselves right back on again. So we may even see them. That you may even actually see bands of light moving across the landscape. And you may see information moving across that. You may see patches of color moving through these bands of light. I have no idea. It's going to be very, very interesting as this thing develops. Now, it's just started, and at the moment, these bands are invisible, and what's been happening are you've seen photographs of pyramids with beams of light coming out the top of them. This is the beginning. This is them booting themselves back up again to create a magnetoelectric grid around the planet of a current flow that is that can carry information, thoughts, and eventually people. So we'll be able to phase in and out of different dimensions. Each of these crossing points becomes a dimensional portal. So, Andrew, let's talk about grids, man.
Grids. The first thing is, when people began to build the original villages, they used their primitive form of energy detection, which was dowsing. Dowsing has developed into many different aspects in many different cultures. Dowsing turned to pendulums. Pendulum turns to crystals. Crystals turns to electromagnetic detectors. Whatever method you use, there's still something that links you to your sentience and your intelligence. And the lines themselves, the grids themselves, are ways for sentience to express motion and movement. The Earth has a sentience. The Earth itself has several dozen different golden grids. And then there's the golden grids of culture and civilization. Our first cross-Atlantic telephone network connected us as a culture in a very unique way for the first time, technically, in the technical sense. There was a transatlantic cable. But before there was a transatlantic cable, there was a ley line that connected the dream times of everyone around the world. That was known as the layer of the Dreamtime grid. So when you went to sleep, it didn't matter what ley line you were next. There was a grid above you that your spirit could raise up to and enter the dream realm of Earth Mother's hive mind. And in that, you could share space with your brothers and sister spirits that are waiting to incarnate. And from there, you can, understand that when you want to invest with other spirits in your lifetime, the ley lines, the dream-based ley lines, they allow you to create and co-create with Earth's essence and sentience. It allows you to see the people that are your potential future and help those people in the future co-create a time in the present with you. The ley lines themselves, the initial thing that we've explained here, is for you to get the feeling of energy, the feeling and conceptual ideas of these things are very real, and if you should take time to invest in them, you will be doing a level of soul expression for yourself in your own way. We bring this information to you because things are changing. They're changing in such a way that it requires people to go out and do things out of love and out of respect, like helping spirits pass on into one home, like JayP has, or I have, or any of the others here that know what they're talking about. When it comes to ley lines themselves, the future us are going to have to know where these lines are going to have to be able to say, is my bed in the right place? If I'm going to build a home, am I going to build it in the proper way? Those things need to be taken into effect for everything we do, from the point that we're sentient about it to the point that it's part of our awareness. For those of you that are new to this and you begin to study it, it will not be a part of your daily life until you make it. When JayP chose to go and follow the Ray readings, he chose to make that a part of his life, and it's something he practiced long and hard with. The same thing with me when I developed the various psychic skills that I had. The same thing goes with the ley lines. Reading a book is one thing. Getting out there and putting a dowsing rod in your hand, and not worrying about what people are thinking about you, extremely important. When I first learned dowsing, I learned it on a river, a stone river. It's a glacial refuge river. And here in Ohio, when the ice sheets came down, they went as low as Columbus, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. So there's tremendous refuge areas that were carved out by the great ice mountains that were moving. And there's every kind of imaginable stone that you can find, from giant boulders 30 feet tall in the middle of an open river to tiny pebbles of gold. If you know what you're looking for in the energy pattern with a set of dowsing rods, you can become one of the best rock hounds in the world. People that know me know that I have stones everywhere. In the particular place that I'm broadcasting right now, it's referred to as the Crystal Fortress because there's probably well over 700 crystals in this room that I'm broadcasting in. And these are some of my more prized stones that I've gotten over the years that I've literally found by hand. Dowsing rod, or just sitting next to the stream and letting the rocks speak to me in a message that allows me to connect to the very source of the essence of water. And that is where there was an underground stream that came up and out, and the pressure from the weight of the crust above it was making this pressure on the stone below it, which was creating an electrical field, a bioelectrical field that was creating this river stream that I was sitting on. And on that river stream was a ley line, the actual ley line that for an entire 3/4 of a mile, that it went up and down this river. And this place I call the mystery spot, because you can go and stand in a spot that's about 16 to 20 feet wide in a circle, and your cell phone won't work in it. Your watch won't work in it. They simply just turn off. You ever been in a place like that, JayP, where electronics don't work?
Anywhere around me. Actually, I'd love to see one of these places. No, I haven't, to be honest. I've met people who stop electronic things from working, and these people are often very tense.
Yep. This place there's the underwater area, and then the combination of the stones and the ley line. And the reason electronics don't work there is because there's a rapid flow of electrons there, and the circuit boards themselves simply don't have the motion energy to stay on, probably because they're not protected enough, and the spiritual energy of that place is so high that it just shuts off the machines in a friendly manner. I've seen video cameras step into the circle and turn off. I've seen people on the outside have, no risk, have been able to on a call, and on the inside it simply just turns off. And
what it sounds like, I'm sorry. Well, what it sounds like is there's some kind of maybe a vortex that's creating a gravity wave.
Correct.
That would do that.
Right.
Because I've had William Stillings on my show quite a lot, and I keep drilling him. How does anti-gravity work? How do time machines work? Yeah, tell me. And a lot of it is to do with the Searle effect, which is having counter-rotating rings. And look at Contact, the film Contact, and this description of the Yellow Book. It's all about counter-rotating rings, and that's what the magic of the Merkaba does as well. If you can, in your mind, create these two tetrahedrons that are counter-rotating against each other, kind of passing through each other, then you get a bright flash of light and suddenly you're on a spaceship. But anyway, so it's all about counter-rotation. So probably the way that these ley lines and the river flow was creating a vortex, something like that, or maybe more than one vortex. It's probably to do with more than one vortex.
There's actually several dozen that form.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 2 3/4 mile section that you can actually walk before it gets to be too dangerous where you can't walk anymore, because the sides of the river wall will cave in on you. It's kind of dangerous to go any further than that, because this place has been carved out. Some of the rock walls or the dirt walls on the side are 70 feet to 200 feet tall with trees on top of them. And it's
So I see. So what you're looking at there is like a bicycle pump. When you put hold your hand at the end of a bicycle pump, the thing gets hot. And that's because the air molecules are banging against the end, and they're all trying to squeeze their way in through the small hole, or out through the small hole, and they're banging against the end, and they're losing their energy, and that's becoming the heat. So that would probably be going on. So that point where the rock gets really, really narrow, that would be a really major spot there.
Exactly. There's so much natural pressure in the land.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to the original birth of this land, there was a 3.5 mile layer of ice sheet above it. So literally the area below it was ground to a fine dust, down to the dolomite rock surface several miles underneath, until finally new plant and animal life began to form dirt on top of it in both of its compost process. Those spots that I was telling you are down to the raw, bare part where the ice met the stone.